Hi, and welcome to Beacon Hill Update with State Senator Jason Lewis. My name is Ryan Boyd, Executive Director of Wakefield Community Access Television, and I'll be your host for today's episode. This show will be shared with other local cable access stations in the 5th Middlesex District and will also be available online. The 5th Middlesex District includes the towns of Malden, Melrose, Reading, Wakefield, and parts of Winchester. Senator Lewis serves as the Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on Education and the Assistant Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. Welcome, Senator.
Thanks a lot, Ryan, and thanks for having me. And I just wanted to clarify that the district also includes the town of Stoneham as well.
Did I miss Stoneham? Sorry, Stoneham.
Don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm proud to represent all those 6 cities and towns.
Perfect.
And appreciate the opportunity to provide an update.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. So first of all, I want to wish you a congratulations on your re-election to the state Senate. I know it was a hard-fought campaign, and I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts on the election process, how it went for you, and any stories you might want to share from it?
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm just thrilled to have the chance to continue to serve in the state Senate. I love my job. And I love the communities that I get to represent. I've been doing it since 2014, so I'm now at the point where I understand the issues pretty well. I've been able to build strong relationships with my colleagues in the Senate and with folks in the district and lots of different advocacy and stakeholder groups. And I think that allows me to be more effective and to be more to have more of a voice because I serve on the leadership team in the Senate. So that's why I'm so excited about being reelected, because I feel like I've been able to help get some good things done on terms of legislative policy and the district, but I think I'm very optimistic about the future. The campaign was hard fought, and that's a good thing. We can't have a vibrant democracy without competitive elections. So I appreciate that, and it gave me the chance to reconnect with a lot of people in the district. I was able to do a lot of events and door knocking and just lots of conversations, and that's important. That is very important to me, to be an effective representative and voice for the district, is to really have a good sense of what the concerns and the needs and the issues are in our communities.
Yeah, honestly, and to just touch base on that a little bit, I mean, so here at our station, I mean, we try to go to as many things and cover as many events as we possibly can here in town, and you're
everywhere. You're great about
but likewise is what I'm, you're always there, and that's one of 6. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're doing this everywhere, so it is impressive to see, and I think it does show that you want to be out there talking to your constituents, finding out what their issues are and how you can help. And I think it's the proof is in the pudding, and I think you're always there to show folks that you're there for them. I think that's appreciated by the voters.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
So another big takeaway from the election was the passing of ballot question number 1, which is the Fair Share Amendment known as the Millionaire's Tax. So seems like you led the charge on this, right? So what was your role? And now that the amendment's finally passed, like, what's going to happen? What's the timeline look like? Sure. And how is this going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. That was another thing I was very pleased with on election night. Is obviously I was happy to be reelected. By the way, I was very happy that Maura Healey is going to be our next governor. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. But another reason I was happy with the election results was question 1 passed, and it was close in the end. I think it was 52%, but folks have been working on that, which, as you said, is known as the Millionaire's Tax, for close to 10 years. And I've been personally involved in it for most of that time. And it's just a way to make our tax system in the state fairer, because currently we have a 5% flat income tax rate. So it doesn't matter how much income you earn, everyone pays 5%. That's different from the federal income tax system, which has different rates. And it's also different from most other states that also have multiple rates. So we've been trying to make the system fairer. And then importantly, to make sure that the money that the state receives from this tax, which is estimated to be somewhere between $1 billion and $2 billion a year in additional revenue, that money is going to really be put to good use. And I believe that the uses that it will be set aside for, which are for public education and for transportation, are almost everyone agrees, that those are areas that we do need more investment. And there's broad consensus on that. So, I'm very confident that is going to, that those dollars will really make a difference. So I served as the lead sponsor in the state Senate for the Fair Share Amendment. It had to go through the legislature. In fact, it had to get voted on twice in successive legislative sessions in order to move it to get on the ballot. So it's been a very long process.
Yeah.
And we finally, obviously got it onto before the voters. And again, I'm very, very pleased that it, was successful.
It's wonderful. Now, as a quick follow-up, I mean, you said it was a close vote, right?
Yes.
52% about. So, is there a message out there maybe for the folks who did oppose this, who didn't believe in it or didn't think maybe it was the right way to do it? Like, what can help maybe put their minds at ease that this is a good path to be going on?
Well, that's a great question, and we do need to recognize that there was a lot of concern. Obviously, it wasn't. It was a close vote. I think one of the reasons that some people may have voted against it was there was a belief that you might be subject to this tax if you sell your home or potentially a business, and that while that might be true in a very small number of cases, the vast majority of people are not going to see an annual income more than $1 million a year, even if you sell your home. And we provide a separate deduction for when you sell your home. There's up to $500,000 deduction from taxes that the state provides. So I do think that unfortunately the opposition gave the impression, that a lot more people would be subject. So I think first of all, folks should understand that really this tax will fall almost exclusively on folks who can afford to pay more. They are really the highest earning households in the state. The other side, the other concern that opponents have raised, which is certainly a valid one, is, that the money does actually get spent on education and transportation,
right,
that the legislature follows through. And that is an area that I'm certainly committed to. And I believe that, those are the areas where we need more investment, including our public K through 12 system. Our public higher education system really needs more support. MBTA, certainly, a few people would disagree with that, roads and bridges. So the need is there. And I'm certainly going to be somebody who is going to push hard to make sure that money, as it starts to come in, gets segregated, in a separate fund, so we can keep track of the dollars. And then we can also make sure that we keep track of how those dollars are appropriated. The legislature is required to spend that money on education and transportation, and I certainly believe it should be all over and above what we already spend. And so I'll be committed to that. But I think that both the advocates who supported question 1 as well as the opponents should hold our feet to the fire. And they should make sure that the state legislature and the governor do follow through and invest those dollars wisely.
Yeah, and I imagine there'll be sort of audits of how it's going along and all of that too. So for the public who might have those concerns can check and say, okay, this is actually where it has gone to.
Yes,
so
definitely, and I think that's right. We should be able to provide an accounting of, okay, well, we received this much money from the millionaire's tax, and this is exactly how those dollars were spent by the legislature.
Yeah. Absolutely. What more can you ask for with that? That's great. That's great. Okay. Now, I know we're coming to the end of the current legislative session, right? So 2 years, right? Are they about 2 years?
Yes, our sessions are 2 years.
Okay. So
that's right.
What are some things that maybe stick out to you over the last 2 years, or highlights that you'd like to talk about that has been able to be accomplished during that time? Yeah,
sure. So we have a little less than a month in the session, so more could still happen. We're going to run right through the tape. The session ends, I believe, January 3rd. And then the new legislative session begins January 4th. So, but in terms of some of the highlights, it's been busy and it's been productive. Obviously, a good chunk of the session was still heavily impacted by the pandemic. Certainly, in 2021, we were still dealing a lot with the pandemic. So that did require the legislature and Governor Baker to respond in many different ways, in terms of shoring up our public health response, providing more support to our small businesses, our municipalities, our nonprofits. So a lot of focus on that. And I think that made a big difference in helping us to kind of navigate through the pandemic. Some other things, we did pass two pretty major climate bills. One was at the very beginning of the session, and then one was just this past summer. And both of those bills together have set a goal that by 2050, Massachusetts has to reach net zero carbon emissions. And that's a legal requirement that's binding now, so we have to work towards that. And that's going to require, obviously, a major transition in our economy.
Yeah.
We have to develop more clean and renewable energy to replace fossil fuels. One area that we've been focused on, and these bills are really helping to accelerate, is offshore wind energy development. And just south of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket is a fantastic region, area where there's tons of wind energy, and it's a perfect area for wind farms. And we are now in the process of building those out. And so I'm really excited about that, because not only are we going to generate clean, renewable energy, but it's a huge economic opportunity. You think about all the jobs that will be created, the new businesses and companies that are going into that space, and Massachusetts stands to be potentially a global leader in that. So anyway, clean energy and climate has been a focus for us. We passed a pretty major voting rights bill. As you know from the recent election, of course, you can go and vote in person on election day. Many people still like to do that. But you could also vote early in person, usually up to 2 weeks before. And you can also vote by mail. And so that was a change that we made permanent. We passed a new law. So in all future state and federal elections, you'll have the choice of voting on election day, voting early in person, typically at town hall, or you can vote by mail without having an excuse. So I'm pleased that is going to make it easier and more convenient for people to cast their ballots and hopefully increase voter participation. Another bill I would highlight would be a major mental health care bill. As folks are probably well aware, that we've got a major crisis with mental health. And the pandemic has certainly made that worse. And tragically, we've been seeing this particularly with many of our young people, teens, young adults. Our schools have been really up against this in terms of the mental health challenges they're seeing. So the new bill that we passed is going to provide significantly increased funding for mental health services, including in our schools. It's going to increase reimbursement rates that insurers pay to healthcare providers, so that more healthcare providers will offer mental health services and primary care. It's going to also encourage more people to go into the mental health field, by providing things like scholarships for college, loan forgiveness programs, additional resources. So, and I'm also hopeful that this will really help deal with we've been seeing people boarding in emergency rooms in hospitals because there aren't enough mental health beds, for people. So we really are trying to tackle that issue. So in this bill, so that was a high priority for for me personally, and I know for many of my constituents. So very pleased that got across the finish line. I'll mention one more thing, and that was, we did see the Supreme Court strike down or overturn Roe v. Wade. And I'm very pleased that Massachusetts, the legislature, and working with Governor Baker, responded decisively to that. And so we've made sure that access to abortion care and reproductive health care in general is fully protected in Massachusetts. And if anything, we've actually we're working to expand access, for example, like on college campuses. So although the right doesn't exist because of this, Supreme Court federally, right, we have made sure that at least in Massachusetts, the right is fully protected here, and we're going to continue to make sure that that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, they're all such important issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, any one of them that you mentioned, and I think, Massachusetts, I think, continues to sort of lead the way with a lot of these things. And I think it's something to be admired within the legislation. You folks aren't afraid to stand up and say, this is what we need to do, is what needs to happen. And I think, I think other people really take note of that. It really do.
Well, thank you for that. And, we also, one of the things I do and my colleagues do is we also see, what's happening in other states, even in other countries, and we try to also learn from the experience. So, for example, California has been doing a great job when it comes to also addressing climate change. So we're, always looking, what are some lessons there. And I hope that other states look at what Massachusetts is doing and say, yeah, hey, that's good policy. We want to replicate that as well. And that's why what we do, at the local level can impact state policy, and what we do at the state level can also ripple out and affect, national policy as well.
Absolutely. Now, the new legislation begins in January, right?
Yep,
And you mentioned it earlier, but newly elected governor, Maura Healey. So what are you looking forward to with the new team, in office?
Well, I tell you, when after you have an election, and then when you start the new session, there's a swearing-in ceremony. This is going to be all on the first Wednesday in January is the date. So whatever date that is, the 4th. So it's always an exciting time. It feels like you feel like a kid again, like you're starting a new school year, and there's a lot of anticipation and excitement, and that's even more true this time around because of the new governor. And so what we're waiting to see now is Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll, who's going to be the new lieutenant governor. We're awaiting eagerly, who they're going to put into various leadership positions. So, she's going to have her own cabinet. We are going to have new secretaries of education, of health and human services, of transportation, economic development, and so forth. So those are very big decisions, and all of those people will then be putting their teams in place. And those are the folks that I would work very closely with as we continue to develop policy and implement various initiatives. So we expect over the next few weeks to month, we'll kind of find out who the new team's going to be.
Yeah.
They're actively working on their transition plans right now. By the way, any member of the public can submit ideas to the Healey-Driscoll administration. If you go on their website, there's a portal, and anybody's welcome to submit, policy ideas, potential initiatives that they would like to see the new administration tackle. And they're also soliciting people who are interested in working for them as well. You can submit your resume, if this is something you're interested in. So there's lots of, exciting opportunities there. So once the new legislature is sworn in, the next day, Governor Healey and the Lieutenant Governor Driscoll will be sworn in, and we'll have to get right to work. The governor will have to submit her proposed budget by the end of February for the next fiscal year. Then the legislature will work on that. We've got a lot to do around the MBTA. We need a new general manager. We're going to need to really look hard at other changes that are necessary. As everyone knows, we've had major safety issues there, major challenges. There's a lot we need to do to improve the MBTA, including the commuter rail. Another area that I think we're going to see a lot of focus from the new administration is housing policy. We've got a real crisis in the greater Boston area where housing's just become so expensive, whether you're trying to own a home or rent. And we just need to do more to, certainly we need to build more housing, but we also need to do more just around affordability. That has been an area we've been working on with Governor Baker. We've changed some of our zoning policies, for example. We have put a lot more money into tax credits for housing development, affordable housing programs, rental vouchers, things like that. But we've really got to do a lot more, in that space. So I do expect that to be a focus. I think we'll continue to definitely focus on what we need to do around climate change and climate resilience. How do we help prepare for the changes that are coming, whether that's, rising sea levels, more severe storms, flooding, that sort of thing. So definitely, I think those will be high on the agenda.
Sure, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Okay, I have to ask. new administration coming in.
Yes.
New roles to be had. Are you hoping for something? Or do you want to continue on with what you're doing, or?
Well, no breaking news here. Unfortunately, I'm personally very happy being in the legislature. Again, just got reelected. I really enjoy serving in the state Senate. I currently have been serving as the chair of the Education Committee, as you mentioned at the outset, and a lot of work to do in the education space. We are still helping our schools recover from the pandemic. The Education Committee is also responsible for early education policy, and that's an area I've been doing a lot of work in terms of how we make early education and childcare more affordable for families. So I look forward to continuing to work in that area. So I'd be very happy to continue, chairing the Education Committee. The decisions about which committees you serve on and all is at the discretion of the Senate President. So if the Senate President were to, ask me to take on leadership of a different area, I would certainly be open to that, and I would want to do the best job I can. But I would also be happy to continue, serving in the role that I am now.
Honestly, it's amazing to me the roles that I think you and your colleagues just find yourself sort of thrust into. You do this long enough, and you build up that rapport and those relationships and the experience to be able to take on a position like that. I mean, average people out there, we don't even know. We don't know the half of what probably goes into what you guys have to do. With all of these things, but it's really admirable.
Well, thank you. It's like anything, you got to dig in, you got to do your homework, you got to learn, but. And you do get over time. Obviously, now I've been the Education Committee chair for, I guess, 3-4 years, so that helps a lot. There's a lot I've learned, but you also rely on you have the benefit of having lots of experts, and for whether that's in my case, talking with teachers, talking with superintendents, talking with academic experts, other stakeholder groups, and they also certainly help educate me on whatever the issue at hand is. So it takes a lot of collaboration and teamwork.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned already that Governor-elect Healy has, you can go online, submit ideas for what folks want to see and all that. But you also have something of the sort out there, right? So, I mean, you always make yourself accessible to your constituents. We know that. But tell me more about, you have an online survey that you've launched to hear from your constituents about their issues and what they want to see and what's important to them. So we'd love to hear more.
Yes. So one of the things that is very important to me and my team is that we are really listening to our constituents in the communities we represent. What are the top priority issues for folks, what would they really like to see the legislature and the new governor tackle. So what we are doing, we did this in the past and it was very successful. We've created an online survey. It probably takes 5 to 10 minutes to fill out, but it allows folks to let me know, what are their top priority issues. Again, whether that's housing, transportation, climate, education, and also helps us understand how they best want to engage with me personally in my office going forward, so we can kind of continue to have that collaboration. So that's about to go online, the survey. So we'll be letting people know. We'll be promoting it on social media and elsewhere. And I hope folks will take the time to fill it out for us. Once the survey will be available for about a month or so. And once we get all the, once enough time's gone by, we'll compile the results, and then we will share back those results with everybody in the district. And we'll probably hold a town hall event also in January.
That'll be great.
To kind of share with everybody, okay, what were the issues that were the highest priority, what specific feedback did we get, and that sort of thing. And then that will be very helpful, because what happens in January and February, once the new legislature is sworn in, we have to file bills. Yeah. So that helps me prioritize, what are there's a lot of areas that, I'm obviously passionate about and have done work in. But in terms of really trying to prioritize, which are those issue areas that we are going to make sure we file bills in, co-sponsor bills that my colleagues have filed, and really focus on. The survey and the research we're doing right now is going to help us a lot.
It's beautiful too, because it's coming straight from the folks that you want to hear from. So I think it's so important. So I would definitely encourage everybody that that's within your district to make sure their voices are heard.
We really hope so, and the more people that respond, and again, it'll only take 5 to 10 minutes online. It'll be more people respond, the more useful and valid those survey results are, because we really want to hear from people who are in their teens and who are in their who are seniors. We want to hear from people in different professions, different walks of life, and so forth.
I think that's great. Now, next question I have. We only have a few minutes left, so I'll try to keep it quick. This one's near and dear to my heart. So, Bill S-2200, 2200, whatever you want to call it, an act relative to digital entertainment on the public rights of way.
Yes.
Commonly known as the streaming bill to folks like myself, at least.
Yes.
I know it's sort of been through it a few times now, a few years in, and haven't quite gotten there yet. But can you talk to me a little bit about it, and maybe a little bit about what we can hope to see?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm proud to be the lead Senate sponsor of the bill. And just for folks who are watching who may not be as familiar as you and I are, Ryan, the challenge is that our local cable access stations, which do such incredible public service for our communities, you cover all the local government meetings and local community events, and very important to our local democracy, rely upon cable access fees. But as people are cutting the cord with cable, right, fewer people have subscriptions to cable, more people are using streaming services, that revenue stream that our local cable access stations rely on to fund them is declining. And that's a growing problem, and it keeps getting worse every year. So the question is, what do we do about that? The bill that we are referring to that I filed would propose instead to assess a very small fee on streaming service subscriptions, and then that money would be used to help fund our local cable access. So the bill is continuing to gather support. There's more legislators who are getting educated on this issue. We've been getting more co-sponsors. So unfortunately, I don't think the bill will pass this current session because we're near the end, but definitely going to file it in the new session. We're going to try to get as many co-sponsors as we can, both senators and representatives. And we're going to really continue to push for a solution. And maybe it won't be exactly, as the bill envisions, in terms of exactly the same structure. That's what we're discussing.
Sure.
But as you and I have talked about, the bottom line is we have to come up with a way to provide a sustainable, funding stream for our local cable access, because we don't want to have to put this all, the responsibility on local taxpayers, which would be otherwise, unfortunately, either that would have to be the solution, or we would just see local cable access, closing their doors.
Right. Which I mean,
really don't want to see that happen.
Right. I mean, from a career standpoint, don't want to see it happen. But more importantly than that, even the amount of work that stations like ours, we try to do everything we can to help the community and keep transparency within your local government and all of that stuff. So I think that there's a bigger issue at hand than just a little bit of funding here. It's
critical to transparent local governments, and as we were saying, more and more of local governments going hybrid as well. So you're also providing the technology and the capability to make sure that hybrid government can function. And that's super important, right? You want to be able to have an in-person component, that's important, but you also want to have a remote component so that the public can also participate remotely. And that takes some expertise, some technology, and local cable access stations are critical to that. Absolutely.
Senator, I think we're out of time. So I'd love to have you in here again soon. And let's, I'll keep the lines of communication open, and I'll be looking forward to seeing, how the new year starts and everything that we have to look forward to. I think it'll be great.
Well, thanks so much, Ryan. I want to wish you and everyone a very happy holidays and a healthy and peaceful new year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for tuning in. And I forgot to say you as well, sir. But thank you so much for tuning in. And, we'll see you soon. So thank you. Thank you again.